Tensions are rising after Moscow says that Ukraine tried to assassinate the Russian president. Kyiv has immediately rubbished the allegation, to say the least, saying it has nothing to do with it. Kremlin, in an official statement, has termed the alleged drone attack as an act of terror and has warned of retaliatory measures. One can imagine what those are going to be like. Check this report to know more.
Moscow is fuming. It claims Kyiv tried to assassinate Vladimir Putin. In an official statement, the Kremlin says that it has shot down 2 drones launched by Ukraine, calling it a planned terrorist attack. We at WION reported the story on the 27th of April.
The Ukrainian Secret Service has reportedly attempted to assassinate Vladimir Putin with a drone. But the attack failed when the drone crashed before reaching its target.
Now the Russian government says it has shot them down. Reports say the UAVs were aimed at the Rudnevo industrial park where the Russian president was scheduled to visit. Ukrainian forces reportedly launched the UJ-22 drone laden with 17 kilograms of C4 plastic explosives. The drones managed to cross the border without being detected by Russia's air defense systems. But before the deadly drone could reach the Rudnevo industrial park on an alleged mission to take out the Russian leader, it crashed mere kilometers away. Moscow calls it an assassination attempt on the Russian president. It has spelled out that it reserves the right to hit back. All eyes are on where, when and how Russia does this to this alleged kamikaze drone attack to take out the Russian president.
All right, for more on this, we have Glenn Deason joining us, who's a professor of international relations, University of Southeastern Norway. Welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Thank you.
Glenn, how do you feel Russia could respond after accusing Ukraine of launching an attack to target the president?
Well, I guess so far it's reasonable to believe that Kyiv is behind the attack. However, this hasn't been confirmed yet, so it could also be a group operating inside Russia. But I guess what we do know is that Ukrainian drone attacks against Russia has increased. And even recently, there was a downed drone found in the outskirts of Moscow. So, well, I would say that if this is an attack by Kyiv, it's an incredible escalation to entirely new levels. Because, again, trying to kill the Russian leadership is very extreme. And as Moscow has stated, it reserves the right to retaliate how it sees fit. So it's quite possible that Russia would respond in kind by targeting the Ukrainian political leadership. Furthermore, you know, it also begs the question how this drone made it to the Kremlin. To what extent were they aided by the United States, for example, in terms of drone technology or intelligence data about the ideal flight path. So it could also represent a step closer to a direct war between NATO and Russia. Yeah, I would just like to add also that this suggests escalation has reached a very high point simply because we're at a very critical stage of the war.
Yes, Glenn, talking about the escalation further, of course, it will sort of invite a retaliatory measure from Russia, which they're already hinting at. But do you think this is a major security breach in Russia? Because it's reported that the 2 drones flew undetected deep inside Russian territory.
Yes, and Moscow is the most secure city in all of Russia, and they not only got 1 drone there, but apparently 2 drones hitting the Kremlin or reaching the Kremlin at least. This is quite an extreme security breach. So, of course, it has some effect. And as Ukraine has suggested, a key objective ahead of this offensive is, you know, to spread panic in Russia, and that this will be a key component of their counteroffensive. So this demonstrates that this perhaps could have been an objective.
Thank you for all those updates, Glenn. This was Glenn Deason, Professor of International Relations from the University of Southeastern Norway, joining in from Oslo. All right. Now, we are continuing with the same story because for a more holistic perspective on the developments, we're now speaking to And our next guest's name is also Glenn. He's Glenn Grant, but he's speaking from a different perspective on the same matter. He's a retired Lieutenant Colonel from the British Army, former advisor to Defense Minister of Ukraine and fellow at Baltic Security Foundation. Welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Grant, this is the first time that claims of the leader being targeted are being made. This gives a new dimension to the war altogether. What kind of escalation can one expect?
Well, I think you have to jump back a bit because, I mean, these are claims for starters. I don't believe that Ukraine has done this or done anything because if they're sensible, they're not going to waste drones for nothing. And if they're going to hit Putin, they would hit Putin. They're not going to give away the fact that they can reach Moscow, so they're not going to fire before they do something serious. This is far more likely showing that Putin is in deep trouble at the moment. He's in trouble with the oligarchs and he's in trouble with the military because they're not winning and he's unhappy about it. He needs mobilization and he's got to actually to show that he is still in charge, he's still important, and to try and bring the public behind him for continuing the war. So this is far more likely to be a ploy on the part of the Russian system than it is for internal consumption, than it is for the reality that they're talking about.
Mr. Grant, so essentially what you're saying is that if Ukraine wanted to hit the president, they wouldn't miss. But the shortest distance from Ukrainian border to Moscow is about 800 plus kilometers. What does this suggest about the penetration and military preparedness of Ukraine in case they had to get to that point?
As I said, if they want to go 800 kilometers, they'll find a way of going 800 kilometers. But it's far more likely if they were going to target Putin, they'd target him when he was when he was obviously clearly available. So it's not a target of Putin. And if they're trying to show they can hit Moscow, well, I think people know that already, that they can reach that far. Because they've already hit oil on the other side of the of the sea from Crimea. What it shows, the escalation point that you mentioned. I mean, Russia's escalating on everything that it can do at the moment, short of nuclear. So I don't see that any talk that they make means that they can do or will do anything different from the murder that they're actually doing at the moment on civilians around Dnipro and Zaporizhzhia.
Mr. Grant, May 9th is the Victory Day parade, and we're parallelly hearing of a Ukrainian counter-offensive as well. Amidst these events or developments, how should we see the current offensive?
Well, I think the offensive is you've got to separate May 9th from the offensive. May 9th is a Russian celebration of their mythical history that they've built up. And they will still want to do that. Now, this drone attack may be an attempt to actually to find an excuse for cancelling that. But the counteroffensive is going to come when Ukraine is ready. And it will have no relevance to May the 9th at all, because that's just a date. Ukraine is not going to commit troops until they're absolutely sure that what they want to do, they can do and do it properly. So I wouldn't link the two.
So with the lack of ammunition or the lack of military equipment that Ukraine has been facing, when do you expect the counteroffensive to start? It was expected somewhere mid-May, but now when?
Well, I think it's only expected because a lot of pundits have been saying it's coming mid-May. If you've got, I'm going to say, a military background, you expect it when it's ready, and that can be as long as it takes. I mean, remind yourself, D-Day was put back a year, effectively. They may put this right back until September, October if they're not ready, and to give them more time to collect more ammunition and more equipment from the Allies and to do more training. So when it comes, it comes. Don't think that there's a special date for it.
Thank you, Mr. Grant, for joining in. That was Glenn Grant, retired Lieutenant Colonel from the British Army and former advisor to Defense Minister of Ukraine, joining us on WION.
Thank you very much.